please, in a few weeks could herald good news for Sam Elliott, nominated for Best Supporting Actor in A Star is Born.
I never thought about it as trying to have a need to prove something to him other than I wanted him to be proud of me.
For decades, he was the man behind the mustache, stoic, steady, and seemingly carved from the American landscape itself. But this time, it's not a film role that has people talking. It's not a Western, not even a comeback. It's something far more personal, a message that didn't come through a microphone or movie trailer, but through a few carefully chosen words that now echo louder than any line he's ever spoken. We've seen Sam the cowboy, the soldier, and the stranger at the bar. But there's one side of him most fans never expected to hear from. And once they did, it hit harder than any scene he ever played. Before we open that final chapter, let's go back to where it all began. Not in Hollywood, but with a promise made in the shadow of loss. Roots and resolve. Sam Elliott's journey began far from Hollywood, in the modest surroundings of Sacramento, California. His mother, Glenda "Glyn" Elliott, was a high school teacher and former diving champion, while his father, Henry Nelson Elliott, worked as a predator control specialist, a job as gritty as it sounds. When Sam was 13, the family relocated to Portland, Oregon, where he would spend the rest of his formative years. These early environments, shaped by structure, discipline, and blue-collar work, laid the foundation for the toughness and grounded demeanor that would later define his screen persona. At just 18 years old, Sam faced a life-altering loss when his father died suddenly of a heart attack. The shock of that moment would leave a lifelong imprint. His father's death wasn't just a tragedy. It marked a turning point. Sam later admitted that his father never believed in his acting ambitions, dismissing them as foolish. He died thinking I was a total idiot for wanting to be an actor, Sam once said. That loss, mingled with rejection and grief, didn't discourage him. It hardened his resolve. It created a fire in him to prove not just to the world, but to his father's memory that he wasn't chasing a pipe dream. A slightly more typical life was the one Sam had chosen before fully submitting to the demands of acting. He entered one of the most ambiguous institutions, the University of Oregon, pursuing such diverse studies as English and psychology. Yet the whole college scene was never truly his. After 2 terms, he opted out, meekly re-entering Clark College in Vancouver, Washington. But it was there that everything changed for him while acting in a college production of Guys and Dolls. Elliott was said to have the makings of a professional actor in one local paper. That affirmation became a critical nudge at a time when he was drifting between expectations and self-doubt. Ultimately, Sam decided to quit school to pursue acting for the rest of his life. Disapproval from his father still resonated with him, but he converted that disapproval into jet fuel for his advancement. Sam's father had told him, "You have a snowball's chance in hell of having a career in Hollywood." With an indomitable spirit, Sam transcended any resentment these words might have instilled in a lesser man. He disavowed the laid-out life of expectations and began a long, rugged journey toward true American iconhood. But before the cameras rolled and the credits followed his name, Sam had to trade ambition for sweat and a trowel for a script. Hustle before fame. Before Sam Elliott ever stepped onto a soundstage or delivered a line in that now iconic voice, he was a laborer, literally building his life from the ground up. After deciding to pursue acting full-time, he moved to Los Angeles, where dreams were big, but rent was due every month. To survive, he picked up construction jobs, often pouring cement under the hot California sun. These weren't glamorous side hustles, they were grueling, blue-collar gigs that kept the lights on while he pounded the pavement looking for auditions. In those early years, the physical labor wasn't just a way to pay bills, it kept him grounded, mentally tough, and focused. Fate took a surprising turn during one of those construction jobs. While helping a family friend on a cement pour, Sam learned that the man was also an assistant director in the film industry. That connection led to an invitation to visit a movie set, a rare opportunity for someone still outside the business looking in. It was there, surrounded by cameras and actors, that Elliott got his first tangible taste of Hollywood. The experience wasn't just inspiring, it was affirming. This wasn't some impossible dream. It was a real, reachable world, and for the first time, Sam could see a path into it. The course of that journey was not so straightforward or rapid. He had early appearances on the screen that were minor, almost invisible. In contrast, his incremation in the legendary Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid at 1969 saw Elliott take up a role as someone playing cards, but delivering only one line, all coming from behind the camera. It was barely a role, but for Sam, it was a breakthrough. He was on a professional set, witnessing legends like Robert Redford at work. Following this were guest spots on television series such as Lancer, Judd for the Defense, and Gunsmoke. They were small, often unbilled, but they were the staging ground for training. Every small part hardened him and taught him the business from the inside. For years, this man hustled, and yet the ultimate stardom still eluded him. For quite a stretch, Elliott was hanging at the periphery of recognition, working, auditioning, and waiting. It did not go away, paycheck to paycheck living, nor the doubts about it. But he didn't quit. Those long years of half-anonymity would shape the actor he later became. They instilled a humility that stayed long after the spotlight finally found him. Looking back at that long wait, ambiguously grueling run-up to fame, he trained the fine work ethic and quiet authenticity that would later distinguish Sam Elliott from the cacophony in which he found himself. The rise of an iconic persona. Sam Elliott didn't set out to become an icon. He simply honed the tools he had until they became unforgettable. His deep, resonant voice, now recognized instantly across generations, wasn't manufactured in a studio. It was shaped naturally over time, starting with his early years singing in church choirs. As he matured, his voice dropped into a deep bass, a gift he recognized as his instrument. Paired with his rugged appearance and signature mustache, Sam created a physical and vocal presence that was both commanding and calm. These elements formed the bedrock of his screen persona, the strong, silent type who didn't need to say much to say everything. This persona crystallized through key roles that showcased both his physical presence and emotional depth. In Lifeguard, 1976, Elliott played a man confronting a midlife crisis, offering a glimpse of vulnerability beneath the bronzed exterior. In Roadhouse, 1989, as Wade Garrett, he embodied the aging mentor archetype, tough but full of heart. Then came The Big Lebowski, 1998, where he portrayed the stranger, a mysterious cowboy narrator whose few lines left a lasting imprint. Each of these performances expanded his range while reinforcing the core traits audiences came to expect: honesty, strength, and restraint. It drew audiences to Sam Elliott not for his voice or look, but for what he represented. In a world often filled with loud heroes and fast-talking anti-heroes, his characters felt different. They were men of principle, not posture, quiet, watchful, and emotionally grounded. His ability to convey depth with a glance or a pause made viewers lean in. The masculinity he projected wasn't aggressive or boastful, was quiet and unwavering. That restraint became his hallmark and allowed audiences to project their own ideas of integrity and wisdom onto him. Somehow, Elliott has built this kind of independence over the years without being pinned into a script with a box. While many actors end up playing the same roles over and over again or different variations on the same theme, he has waltzed through westerns, dramas, comedies, and even occasionally action films. It has never mattered whether he was voicing an animated cow in Barnyard or mentoring a lost Bradley Cooper's character in A Star is Born. Authenticity never faltered. Instead of trying to smash the type, he embraced his strengths and let consistency play to his advantage. Over time, that consistency became the brand statement, not a caricature of the cowboy, but one fully shaped symbol of timeless and quiet American grit and dignity, love and loyalty. The first time Sam Elliott laid eyes on Catherine Ross was in 1969 on the set of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Ross was already a major star, known for her iconic role in The Graduate, while Elliott was just a background extra, a man with no lines and no real reason to approach her. He admired her from a distance, later admitting, "I didn't dare try to talk to her." For Sam, that moment was memorable not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. It was the quiet beginning of a love story that would take nearly a decade to unfold. Their paths crossed again in 1978, when they co-starred in the horror film The Legacy. This time, the roles were more equal, and the connection was undeniable. On set, the chemistry extended beyond the script, and what began as a professional collaboration quickly grew into a personal bond. By then, Ross was emerging from her fourth marriage, and Elliott remained respectful but sincere in his interest. Once her previous relationship ended, their connection deepened into something lasting. Their romance defied the norms of a business where relationships often burn fast and fade quicker. Sam and Catherine wedded in 1984, the year marking the beginning of one of Hollywood's longest partnerships. Over the years, they would support one another during the peaks of their career and the lows, choosing to fashion their lives concealed and grounded from the public eye. Unlike many celebrity couples, they shunned public attention. The family came first. Instead, they raised their daughter Cleo and hit the odd collaborative project here and there, like the 1991 Western Conager. Their marriage was not built on red carpets, but on mutual respect, patience, and the quiet work of staying together. Elliott has always emphasized the importance of effort and honesty when explaining how their relationship lasted. "You work past the stuff, you don't walk away from it," he said at one time. In an industry characterized by transience and egos, Sam and Catherine found something rare, a union founded on similar values and a readiness to weather the storms. To Sam, loyalty was not merely a screen trait, it was a personal code. His marriage to Ross became the one stronghold for him to rely on in this world of glitter, unearthed by illusion. Principles over paychecks. In an industry known for bending morals to get ahead, Sam Elliott chose a harder road, one paved with principle. During the 1980s, at a time when few male actors spoke openly about such things, Elliott revealed that he had been approached inappropriately by both men and women through Hollywood's notorious casting couch culture. He refused every time. While he acknowledged that turning those offers down likely cost him opportunities, he made peace with the consequences. "I'm the one who has to live with that guilt," he once said, highlighting a deep inner compass that refused to trade dignity for success. Elliott's career was never fueled by the need to be everywhere or in everything. From the start, he made it clear that he wouldn't compromise his values just to land a role. This often meant passing on projects that didn't align with his ethics or personal sense of integrity. He gravitated toward stories that had emotional weight, characters with purpose, and scripts that meant something beyond box office numbers. In a world where many chased the next big thing, Sam chased meaning. And because of that, even when his name wasn't at the top of the marquee, his performances left lasting impressions. When the Me Too campaign came through Hollywood in the late 2010s, Elliott openly declared his support for it. He described the cultural awakening as the most significant turnaround the industry had seen for decades. His stance was not performative, as it meshed with the way he had lived out his career. Rather than rejecting the movement or distancing himself from it, as did some of the older stars, he talked about a necessary course correction, particularly for the protection of young, vulnerable talent entering the business. The impact of what he said was not just because of who he was, but also because he had always backed up what he said with what he did. Sam Elliott has somehow always, during his career, managed a kind of humility reserved for few celebrities. He has never been caught up in the excesses of Hollywood. Scandalous or spectacular behavior has simply never been his style. He has always been focused on acting, family, and values. He said he doesn't go online and would much rather have a good chat than deal with distractions. Detachment from the shallow trappings of fame restored Sam Elliott's authentic presence in the eyes of the fans. The key to his balance in a world enamored with attention and reinvention is the simple fact that he refuses to be anyone but himself. But staying true to yourself doesn't mean staying in the shadows. Sometimes it leads to a spotlight you never asked for but fully deserve. Late career renaissance. For much of his career, Sam Elliott was the kind of actor people recognized instantly, even if they couldn't always name him. With his gravel-lined voice, steely gaze, and cowboy calm, he built a reputation as the dependable supporting presence, the character who brought weight to a scene without demanding the spotlight. But that all began to change in the late 2010s, when Elliott experienced a long-overdue resurgence that thrust him back into the center of critical and popular attention. The turning point came in 2017 with The Hero, a film that felt tailor-made for him, playing an aging Western actor coming to terms with his mortality and regrets. Elliott delivered a performance rich with vulnerability, humor, and grace. It was a deeply personal role, and for many, it blurred the line between character and man. The raw honesty in his portrayal resonated with audiences and signaled that Elliott's best work wasn't behind him. It was just beginning. The momentum from The Hero carried straight into one of the biggest roles of Elliott's career, Bobby Maine in A Star is Born, 2018. As the older brother and emotional anchor to Bradley Cooper's troubled musician, Elliott's performance was both subtle and deeply affecting. He didn't dominate the screen with flashy monologues or melodrama. Instead, he let silence, posture, and a few carefully delivered lines do the talking. His portrayal earned him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, a recognition that fans and fellow actors alike agreed was long overdue. "It's about time," Elliott said with his signature bluntness when asked about the nomination. The nod wasn't just a personal win, it was a signal that the industry had finally caught up to what audiences had known for decades. With the advancement of time, critics also began to soften their position toward Elliott's work. Where earlier reviews tended to diminish him to the archetype of a cowboy or more of a presence in the sidelines, the later performances introduced an emotionally deep man with a great power of expressive restraint. In both The Hero and A Star is Born, Elliott witnessed a kind of masculine grieving, the kind that felt both ancient and painfully modern, when he learned to speak volumes just through a glance or an interlude of silence. Reviewers concentrated on his emotional intelligence, a sort of knowingness blended into human experience, so that almost always the characters would have strayed into mere symbols. The one generation who grew up with Elliott as a walking mast of old-school toughness was provoked deeper into their own response by these performances, revealing ultimately the conflicted heart behind that hard facade. Western audiences and film buffs reveled in the magic of a cult favorite with whom he breaks a significant tradition in this late career renaissance. Elliott the actor is, instead, a universally respected artist across genres and generations. Having gone away from niche appreciation and typecasting, Elliott's presence was rare, a performer for whom authenticity trumped the resume, and whose being literally elevated the material. He was not chasing legacy, quite simply embodying it. And in so doing, he brought the whole world back to the point of realization that the gift of great acting is not reinventing history or just reinventing it for the sake of doing it, but living so long in your truth that others eventually see it. For Sam Elliott, the applause came not at the start of his journey, but at a point where he'd earned every moment of it. A difficult lesson. In 2022, Sam Elliott, long known for his quiet strength and principled presence, found himself at the center of an unexpected storm. During an appearance on Mark Maron's WTF podcast, Elliott made off-the-cuff remarks about The Power of the Dog, a critically acclaimed film directed by Jane Campion. His comments were blunt, dismissive, and laced with discomfort over the film's portrayal of masculinity and cowboy culture. "Where's the Western in this Western?" he asked, before criticizing the film's allusions of homosexuality and questioning how a director from New Zealand could understand the American West. What may have felt like casual cowboy candor in the moment quickly spiraled into a major controversy. revealing the power and scrutiny that come with celebrity voices, especially ones as recognizable and respected as his. The backlash was swift and widespread. Director Jane Campion responded with calm yet pointed clarity, labeling Elliott's comments as misogynistic, xenophobic, and entirely out of step with the evolving conversations about gender, storytelling, and creative authority in Hollywood. She made it clear that Elliott was an actor, not a cowboy, and that his remarks reflected a narrow view of both art and identity. Benedict Cumberbatch, who played the film's lead, didn't call Elliott out by name, but delivered a powerful rebuttal during a panel talk, noting the importance of telling stories that challenge traditional norms and broaden represent. Cumberbatch's words, delivered with quiet authority, struck a chord. The idea that storytelling should reflect complexity, not just convention. Certainly, Sam Elliott didn't hide, or deflect. Within a week or so of the uproar, he faced the music for the Deadline Contenders event, giving an incredible, unusually daring, frank, and personally apologetic public clarification. As he owned up to it, "I wasn't very articulate about it. I hurt people with my words, and I feel bad." He then declared that the community he's known to have had his long-standing support from the LGBTQ+ community, further expressing his regret for the offense caused by his words. No justification, no blaming anyone else, just taking the blame for himself. Brilliant actors, specifically called out by him as having offended, were the multiple lacklusters from The Power of the Dog. Elliott chose humility over ego when most public figures double down as the fire lit. He chose humility to confess. Indeed, it would be the watershed event in Elliott's life, as far as the public was concerned. The man embodied, for decades, the American prototype steeped in silence, letting his presence and actions take on another form of language. It was at this juncture that words mattered the most, and he had to face the consequences of their meanings. The incident became a rare moment of vulnerability and growth for a figure so often cast as immovable. The reminder about strength comes with an admission that it is not in stubbornness, but in admitting wrongs and evolving. The pain was not erased by the apology given by Elliott, but it did confirm something many already believed, that beneath his tough image, Sam Elliott is a man really striving to live with integrity, even if it takes some hard lessons to learn late in life. Voice and politics. In 2024, Sam Elliott made headlines not for a new film or award nomination, but for stepping into the politically charged arena with a bold, unmistakably candid voiceover for a campaign ad supporting then Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential bid. The ad, which aired nationwide during a peak election cycle, featured Elliott's trademark drawl paired with language far more direct than audiences were used to hearing from him. "Are we really going back down that same road?" he asked, the profanity slicing through the political noise with raw urgency. The ad aimed to capture the frustration many Americans felt about regression in civil rights, economic disparity, and environmental rollbacks. For Harris's campaign, Elliott brought authenticity and gravitas. But for many viewers, especially those accustomed to his reserved screen presence, the ad was jarring and unexpected, both a powerful call to action and a sharp turn from his historically apolitical public image. The response to the ad was predictably polarized. On one side, fans praised Elliott's willingness to take a stand, admiring the fact that a Hollywood veteran who had built his career on old-school values wasn't afraid to speak out in the modern age. They saw his involvement as an evolution, an artist using his voice to support progress, equality, and change. On the other side, critics questioned his motives and tone, accusing him of undermining his long-cultivated image of stoic neutrality. Some felt that his language crossed a line, and others were disappointed to see him enter the fray of partisan politics at all. What emerged was not just a debate about the AD's content, but a larger cultural reflection on the role of legacy figures in contemporary activism. Elliott, intentionally or not, had forced the conversation on what happens when quiet icons finally speak up. Nevertheless, in what surely added to the dramatic irony of the situation, reports had surfaced that Elliott had joined a loosely configured group that called itself the Anti-Woke Actors Alliance. Membership was said to include Clint Eastwood, Kurt Russell, and a few other Hollywood old-timers. The group espoused values for traditional storytelling and expressed unhappiness with political correctness, as they defined it, in contemporary film and television. While Elliott never admitted to membership, such an association brought with it renewed controversy, as supporters hailed it as a defense of creative ability and authenticity, while detractors condemned it as a reactionary stance against the cultural shifts that had been long overdue. The group itself stood for a more traditional divide in the entertainment world, that between advocates for diversity and inclusion in narratives and those who yearn for what they perceive to be the purity of classic cinema. Elliott has recently presented an interesting tension in the cultural perception between tradition and progress. Here was, conversely, an actor known for restraint and ageless masculinity, making headlines for all the political and ideological comments. Some would say it is some form of betrayal, quiet strength one imagined with him. And to others, it would simply seem to indicate a growth initiation, the man not content to stay on the sidelines anymore. Duty and tribute. In May 2025, Sam Elliott was prominently featured in U.S. Veterans Magazine, lending not just his name, but his voice and presence to a cause he has long cared about: honoring those who serve. As part of Military Appreciation Month, the issue spotlighted veterans' stories, career transition resources, and emotional health support, areas Elliott has quietly championed for years. His feature wasn't a token celebrity piece. It was a sincere contribution, rich with reflections on sacrifice, duty, and the quiet dignity of service. Through interviews and narration, Elliott spoke directly to veterans and their families, acknowledging the weight of what they carry and the strength they bring to the country after their uniforms are retired. The moment felt less like a publicity effort and more like a heartfelt tribute from a man whose voice had long symbolized stoicism, honor, and resilience. Elliott leveraged his platform to produce awareness for two of many commonly unspoken issues pertinent in the veteran community: mental wellness and career reintegration. He stressed unique issues service members tend to face returning to civilian life and how it can feel jarring, sensation-sober, perhaps in even defeat. He always encouraged the public, and even policymakers, to take these cases seriously, a reminder that the country's gratitude shouldn't only end in a thank you on Veterans Day during his interviews. Stronger support systems, wider access to mental health care, and better job training programs tailored to the requirements of experience were what he called for. The message carried and landed with unusual weight, because Elliott himself was averse to grandstanding, which accounted for it. Not awareness only, and not accountability to ensure that these give-outs will not be forgotten the moment they step out of uniform. That's why Elliott's appeal is all the more impressive in being entirely at one with the values which he has espoused throughout his life. His characters, the weary cowboy, the no-nonsense sergeant, the uncompromising father figure, have always embodied the code of honor, loyalty, and selfless service. His advocacy of veterans doesn't seem to be a side project, but rather an extension of who he has always been, on screen and off. That authenticity is rare, and it makes the message keep resonating. When Elliott found the occasion to express that message for American soldiers, one that has always been with him, strength born quietly through humility, true heroes, that is veterans, walk quietly among us, often without recompense. And while his voice honored those who served, what he left behind spoke just as powerfully about the man behind the mustache. Legacy, etched in grit and grace. Sam Elliott's legacy is more than a string of iconic roles. It's the embodiment of a rare artistic consistency built on humility, grit, and moral clarity. In an industry that often rewards reinvention and sensationalism, Elliott stood apart by remaining true to his core values. His voice and presence became symbols of authenticity at a time when both were increasingly hard to find in Hollywood. Whether as a weathered cowboy or a weary mentor, Elliott portrayed characters who didn't just speak, they resonated. That resonance came not from dramatic flair, but from emotional truth, something that defined not only his performances, but the man himself. Over the years, Elliott earned the respect of his peers not through flashy awards campaigns or headline-chasing roles, but through steady, unshakable commitment to the craft. Directors praised his professionalism, co-stars described him as generous and grounding. Even as he became a sought-after voice in commercial narration and political commentary, Elliott maintained a professional discretion that shielded his personal life from tabloid spectacle. His work ethic, coupled with a quiet command of every role he inhabited, established him as a cornerstone of integrity in an ever-shifting entertainment landscape. Elliott has become an aging reference point for a generation of binge-watchers and reboots, all made possible by the streaming age in which we live. Nostalgia alone does not invite revisiting his roles. More than that, they are studies in stillness, restraint, and emotional intelligence. The younger actors he has inspired have looked to him not as a mold to copy, but more as a measure of how to last in the business without losing oneself. Still, he provides a challenge to a culture made deafening by loudness, for stillness can be just as commanding. Thanks for watching. If Sam Elliott's journey moved you, let us know in the comments. What part of his story hit home the most? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories, and tap the bell so you never miss a moment. And if you're ready for another powerful tale, check out the next video on your screen now.